talked a lot about authenticity, right? So I'm coming in here with this, no tie, different kind of earrings and industrial piercing because that is me, right? That's how I went into law school. That's how I was accepted into law school, and that's how I'm going to remain for you today, right? So 6 years later. I know I look a lot younger, thank y'all in advance. So, as Marcus said, thank you so much. It's amazing actually coming after you, Corby, Mark. So many great people in the field, in the fight. For me, the reason why that's so important is because I really do just kind of want to continue the conversation of theory of change and what that looks like in social movement spaces. I don't hold any punches, and so you may hear some words in here that are a little bit different than what Black lawyers are given the space to actually be and who we are actually told we can be. But I'm going to break that ground and be that person anyway, right? So the title of my remarks today is How Rape Led Me to Law School, but How Justice and Equity Led Me to My Career Following it. So thank you so much to Evangeline and everyone for organizing this conference. It has been beautiful. I'm sure you've heard a lot about how to be successful in law school. For me, I'm not going to talk about the 1, 2s, and 3s of law school, right? I'm going to talk about really owning who you are authentically when you enter into law school and really when you find that job afterward, but really making sure that you can stay true to yourself, right? Because that's what's really important. So before I really begin, I really started to think a lot about what could I say to you all, right? To succeed in law school, what would be important? I could talk about a personal statement, but then I really just thought, no, you already know a lot about that. I'm sure you're tired of hearing about 3-page requirements and documents, so I'm not going to really talk about that. I could talk to you all about making sure you have high grades, and I'm sure you already know that and working toward that. And I could even talk about taking being strong enough to take a good LSAT, right? But for me, I'm not here to uplift the structurally biased exam. So that's not going to be the speech you'll hear from me. So today I want to focus on showing mercy to those communities who often don't receive it. I also want to talk about what being broken looks like and how you can use your experiences of brokenness and mercy in being an effective law student and lawyer. Can't underscore enough about the brilliance of Bryan Stevenson's book, Just Mercy. By a show of hands, have anyone ever read it or heard of it? All right, it's a brilliant, brilliant book. So, as I was preparing for this keynote, I was actually finishing that book. Just Mercy, a story of justice and redemption. Have you ever heard a book that you had to fight back tears the entire time you were reading it? That made you as angry as it made you hopeful. That made you as sad as it made you happy. Where the characters were real-life people, complex, marginalized, intersectional. Your friends, your loved ones, women, young people, Black, brown, you. That was that book. The second I picked up Just Mercy, I knew it would change my life. It taught me so much, made me think back to what I learned in law school, but more importantly, what I did not learn in law school and what I wish I had learned in law school. That brokenness isn't a flaw, or it's not a weakness. And that recognizing the power of mercy is the ultimate strength. So again, really thought about Just Mercy, the twists and turns it took me on, talking about gender justice, racial justice, poverty, the persecution and prosecution of young people. And not just the mercy that we often connect to religion and socially constructed institutions, but the mercy that connects our spirit to the universe. The mercy where we allow people to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to be happy, to be sad, to shout, to speak very quietly. You see, in its purest form, mercy is both violent and revolutionary. It is as tranquil as it is erratic. When we hear the word violence, it often requires us to cringe, to feel bad, to want better. It's designed to appeal to our moral compass, but honestly, what it's really designed to do is to control our natural reactions to injustice. That's what I wish I learned in law school. The natural reactions to our body, how we heard all of these names year after year. Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Aiyana Stanley Jones, Jordan Davis, Philando Castile, Mike Brown, Eric Garner, Alton Sterling, Sandra Bland, Corinne Gaines, Charlena Lyles, John Crawford, Eastland Nettles, Mark Carson, China Doll Dupree, Misha Caldwell, and I could continue. Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old boy living in Cleveland, Ohio, my hometown, the state. He was playing with a toy gun at a recreation center until he was subsequently shot by Officer Timothy Loman in 2014. This was in seconds of him arriving. This was on video surveillance. The result? No justice. Philando Castile was a 32-year-old supervisor, was killed in front of his child and girlfriend who recorded the video and put it on Facebook for the world to see. In the video, she explained that after being pulled over for a broken taillight, her boyfriend Philando was shot multiple times while reaching for his license, daughter in the back seat. Castile was a little different here because he informed police officers that he had a licensed registered weapon. The blood on his shirt is still visible. His arm dangling on the bones. He's dead. Result? No justice. Sandra Bland, a 28-year-old black woman in Texas, had just accepted a job offer. After being detained and arrested after an illegal traffic stop by State Trooper Brian Encinia in 2015, she allegedly hung herself in a Waller County, Texas jail cell. Result? No justice. Eastland Nettles, I need to always uplift my black trans sisters. Eastland Nettles, a 21-year-old black transgender woman in New York City, was walking down the street. She was subjected to transphobic comments, was taunted, and was beaten to death in front of people 4 years ago this summer. These are not isolated incidences. What is the result? No justice. No justice, no justice, no justice. No justice, no justice, no justice. No justice. Do you hear me? What does mercy look like to them? What does mercy look like to you? I keep saying no justice and hoping that one day justice will finally come. It's like when you're missing your dog and you keep screaming your dog's name, knowing that your dog may not come, but knowing that your dog is hungry and has to find its way home. He must come home. Justice must come home because he's starving. Until then, I scream emphatically, no justice. We need mercy, friends. They needed more mercy. Your clients will need mercy. As students, you will beg for mercy. You need to know this before entering into law school and when practicing. So I'm going to tell you this brutal news now. Far too often, we're told something about peace and how peace, and we need that instead of violence, right? So therefore, when we're riding in the streets after a black life is taken by the carceral state, like in St. Louis or Baltimore or Ferguson or Oakland or in the nation's capital or in Charlottesville, we're told to relax, right? Be okay. It's going to sort itself out. Trust the process, they say. We don't know all the facts yet, they say. We must reframe our thinking around violence. Because let's be clear, violence is rooted in white supremacy, not based on our reactions to it. Violence scares so many of us, but it's because we're forced into a framing rooted in that same flawed model of what should and should not occur. One that's not about diversity, and surely not one of inclusion and equity. Our reactions, our mercy, our brokenness is deeply rooted in humanity, and I wish law school taught me that more. I spent so long attempting to unlearn what I knew to be true. If you don't take anything away from today, please know this. The absence of conflict and violence does not mean you have peace. And the presence of what we think is diversity does not mean you have inclusion or equity. Again, I wish I knew this before entering to law school. I wish I knew this before starting my career. I wish I knew this as an adjunct professor at Georgetown School of Law. I wish I knew this fighting and banging on the streets every single day for black, queer, and trans people. I wish I knew this, so I'm telling you. Mercy is where we allow people, especially those who have been disenfranchised by oppressive institutions and individuals, to be unapologetically human. To disrupt systems that oppress marginalized communities like black and Latino people, like queer, transgender, and gender nonconforming people, like disabled people, like women and girls, like rape survivors, like those living in Section 8 housing, like those who were forced to carry a pregnancy, like parents on welfare, like poor people, like those who are fighting to survive, like those who live at the intersections of these experiences every single day. That's mercy. The legal professions and lawyers need more mercy. We need more social justice, we need more movement work. The legal professionals and lawyers need less respectability politics. We need less restriction. We need more humans, we need more humanity. We need more authenticity, more mercy. More blackness, more brownness, more people of color, less apologies. Only some of my closest friends and colleagues know this, but for the longest time I wanted to be a death penalty defense attorney. I was so frustrated by the idea that the state should decide if someone dies by a jury, not of their peers, after they're found guilty. Because to me, killing to prove that killing is wrong just seemed counterproductive and counterintuitive. I had to breathe a heavy sigh of relief in the United States and all of its infinite wisdom and imperialistic hubris thought that it should kill its own people. I was troubled by all these facts that we can cite from the Plesky v. Kemp. Again, law cases don't really define outcomes. But that in mind, I interned at two places, the ACLU Capital Punishment Project and the Center for Death Penalty Litigation when I was in law school, to explore options of what it meant to work within a system that made broken people more broke. For many reasons I didn't and couldn't continue with that type of work, but I found other ways to be involved in social justice and movement work. So I'm going to read to you one chapter or a passage from a chapter in Just Mercy called Broken. Brian Stevenson writes, I realized something sitting there while Jimmy Deal was being killed at home in prison. After working for more than 25 years, I understood that I don't do what I do because it's required or necessary or important. I don't do it because I have no choice. I do what I do because I'm broken too. We are all broken by something. We have all hurt someone and have all been hurt. We all share the condition of brokenness, even if our brokenness is not equivalent. Ooh. All right. Y'all still with me? Yeah. All right. So we all share the condition of brokenness, even if that is not equivalent, right? Who in here has been hurt? Who's brave enough to say they've hurt someone? Right? May not be similar, but you've been broken by it. I know I've been broken by systems that just don't care. You see, I believe in something that Purvi mentioned, and I'm glad she did. I believe in radical and transformational love. This transformative love. Not the love that's about dating, but the love that says I literally cannot live another day until I see black and brown people being treated the same way as other people. The transformative love that'll make you go in and completely dismantle systems of white supremacy. That, to me, is transformative love. The kind that you need. The kind that allows for intersectional voices. The kind that allows the most marginalized to be the center of the room. The type of transformative love I didn't know existed until years after I was raped. To non-survivors, this may seem peculiar, but to most survivors of rape, no matter how hard we try, we feel a piece of our body is gone, along with the person who attempted to take that from us. For me personally, I can still visualize his features. I can see the slant of this yellowness in eyes. I can smell cheap cologne. I can smell old packs of Newports. Those characteristics of my rapist will never leave me. Nor will my recognition of the nausea I personally feel every January as his birthday approaches every year. I'm going to get a little personal. It all started when I was 10, that age when masculinity and how it's performed is tested in uniquely different ways. This often begins with discussions with older men about topics ranging from relationships, how many girlfriends do you have, to assurances that if my guy friends and I only looked at each other in the bathroom, we wouldn't be gay. One person went a bit further though. Curiosity is natural, he often said. It's a part of life, in fact. Now you see, rape is an unbearable act that often renders words insufficient, but rape led me to law school. injustice and equity of survivors led to my career and the work that I do today. Because rape survivors are hardly believed. We're broken. Children of rape remain silent. They're broken. It's important to note that being broken in itself isn't a problem. It's the actions that lead to it, coupled with the uncaring systems that some of us may represent, that creates that Pandora's box of brokenness. So what does all this have to do with diversity, inclusion, equity, and the law? Everything. There is such power in equity. I'm going to let you in on something. Inclusion is better than diversity, which is better than equality. However, law schools and the legal profession need more than sameness, variety, and representation. We need all students to have access to opportunities and resources they need to excel. That's equity. Now, I'm sure you may know this, all law schools don't care about equity. The legal profession don't really care about equity because there's something that's so sexy to many of them about upholding the status quo, right? The status quo that I hope you all are willing to dismantle with. And what we all know is that so many organizations have diversity wrong. I really hate that so many of our definitions of racial diversity are about how many people of color we can get within a certain space. Because that still centers whiteness. It still makes that the standard. It is not pushed against it. It isn't diversity. That's the problem with how some of us view diversity. We always center white people in our work, and we're counting the number of people of color around us to decide whether we're diverse or not. The question is always, how many people are in here? Now add more. It's tokenism. It's counting. That's why we must start thinking about intentional inclusion as a praxis and equity as reparations for that praxis. All black and brown folks of different backgrounds on one panel is diverse. Hiring a person of color to replace the person of color is not. Y'all see the difference? Yeah. All right. So I want to share a brief story because I don't mince words. So, a few years ago, I was talking to a director of a really big nonprofit organization and about hiring more black and brown people. The response I received was, Preston, I want to be more diverse and intentional, but when I do research based on our applications of the candidates, I realize they don't meet the qualifications like other candidates. Now, I want to be very clear, other equals white, all right? Very clear. My immediate response was, well, you don't care about diversity, and you certainly don't care about hiring more black and brown people. She was offended, of course. I mean, I tend to do that sometimes. But here's what I had to break down to her. You can't be a hiring manager, say you understand diversity, inclusion, and equity, then not be willing to work with marginalized communities of color who have skills, but due to systematic issues, may not live up to 100% of your traditional circumstances. Professional development, mentorship, and training are critical when seeking the right candidate. That's why I take mentorship so seriously. And if you're willing to put in the work to build up your team, then you're likely to just perpetuating a sink or swim mentality that's so prevalent in the nonprofit industrial complex, particularly in Washington, D.C. As I continue to her, if organizations like this, legal or otherwise, want diversity, they must check which schools mostly fill up its organization. If it's mostly Ivy and top 15, you're doing it wrong. So you gotta think about whether even an educational degree is important, whether it's relevant to your position. You have to think about race. You have to think about gender and gender identity. You have to think about sexual orientation. You have to think about background. Think about training. Think about what experience means. And think about what energy is necessary for you to actually have diversity beyond tokenism and counting. Think about broken people. Think about systems that force them to be broken. Think about mercy. I do want to say also that conversation didn't end that well. Which again, because I know people, I was expecting that after the conversation happened. But I want to be honest, because this is what we're up against, friends. So you are needed in this work. You should be willing to do the work. It won't be easy, but you do have a role to play for yourself and for future generations. And so do I. And so do they. Right? This is intentional inclusion. This is what this looks like. We need to move away from things. Move away from white supremacy, move away from sexism, move away from queerphobia, move away from transphobia, move away from misogyny, move away from Islamophobia, move away from respectability politics, move away from what has been embedded and firm in the law since antiquity. We need to move toward freedom, toward liberation, toward equity. Just remember with me, you are needed, you're wanted, you are valued, you are deserving. Your brokenness is needed. Your brokenness should be talked about. But your mercy is required. Thank you.